Okay, this is Drawing in Anarchy, Lesson 2. Today, I'm going to reveal my one and only secret, and that's called the nub. So, what I mean by a nub is a little thing like that, with some definition, a bit of shading. That is a nub. It is basically the secret to everything I draw. Yes, so I'm continuing with this thing that I started yesterday when I was rambling about nothing. So, more nubs, right? Who doesn't love that stuff? But I thought while I was doing this, like yesterday, I would ramble on. But since I didn't have a topic really yesterday, I thought I would pick one. So I was thinking about this and decided that I would talk about how to draw books. Because when I was growing up, I loved looking through books on how to draw. And one of my major failings is that I didn't read. Like, I could. I know how to read. But I just, the text in those how to draw books just bored me to very extreme measures. And I just couldn't take it. So I looked at the pictures. Maybe I glanced at the descriptions. But you know what? It all went over my head. And what would happen is you'd see someone draw a circle, right? And then like eyes, and then a mouth, right? Blah, blah, mouth. And somehow it would turn from this like crappy little circle, like literally something like that, into this fleshy thing that had zero resemblance to that, right? I think we all sort of know that, and we're like, what the hell happened? Well, apparently, I discovered at some point that people used erasers not to fix mistakes, because the circle that they started with wasn't a mistake. It was just more of a guideline, right? So what I'm doing as I'm blah blah blahing is making nubs, right? And to me, like, you have a circle, right? That's a whole thing, right? That's just a blob. You can see this. This is a blob. And it's got some definition. It kind of curves around from here. That's a blob. So things, like things we see are kind of blobby in my view, right? Faces kind of blobby. That lumpy nose, you got a lumpy nose. So it's just the nub is just like this thing that just cut, take a part of that, take the nub of it, and then it gets connected to another kind of nub, and we're using it sort of like Lego, right? So this is another nub, and then another nub, and can we see this? We're just sort of connecting all these nubs, and it's more, to me, It's more like using pieces of Lego and gluing them together in imperfect shapes. But no one did. You know what? I can't even tell you if people in drawing books and how-to books ever talk about that, because I never read it. I didn't read any of them. Like, I had a figure drawing book, and like it has proportions of the human body, and then it has close-up of shoulders, which honestly is amazing, and people should know. If you want to know how to draw a hand or a shoulder or a body, like, those are fabulous references, and they can teach you probably how those things are, right? It doesn't necessarily mean how you translate that three-dimensional blobby object of a person into a two-dimensional thing on a piece of paper, right? They never really go over that. You don't, even in a perspective book, which in my mind is actually very mathematical, because what it really is you taking a projection of a three-dimensional world and projecting it onto this plane, right? And that's pretty remarkable. So what we do, I guess, when we connect the blobs is I don't know what we do. Just connect blobs. And yeah, I you know, if it feels right where you put a blob, well, give it a go. If at the end you think, well, that blob shouldn't have been there, you kind of learn something, right? And the other thing too, when I do this, is sort of I do not pay attention usually to where the light is coming from. I think usually I put light like over in the top right hand corner, because all the shadows are kind of bottom left, right? Anyways, so these how to draw manuals and garbage, some of them are actually very good. Like, I'm not going to say that they're bad. They just they didn't help me, because I didn't want to learn. Wait, no, that's not true. What I didn't want to do was read. So I think I kind of got left behind. All these people reading Loomis, I don't even know. And there's a couple major figure drawing people that wrote books. And you draw a box in perspective, and you connect the little trapezoids. I don't know. I like blobs. I'm going to stick with blobs. And you might notice that every blob that I make kind of ends up looking like a face, but it doesn't have to. It could be like, oh, that was actually a finger sticking out of his eyeball. And you didn't know that until you put the fingernail there. Like, oh yeah, I see. Anyways, I have things written down, like, how I was gonna talk about how I had a book on how to draw cats, and none of it didn't go anywhere. And like, I think what I did most of the time when I drew as a child, like before I even knew what I was doing, and I had those books that I didn't read, I would just look at pictures in magazines and draw stuff. And it was terrible. Oh man. So bad. But the books didn't help. They were nice. I love looking at how to draw books and like how to draw videos. I love that. I don't usually listen because they're not saying anything interesting, like there's like awesome music, and I hate music, I guess. Yeah. So the blob is basically the nub, and that's it. I think that's my secret. So if I make more of these instructions, lessons, I'm gonna have to come up with something else, because this was basically it, the nub. I think maybe next time I'll talk about squares, or things with straight sides, because those are kind of cool too. But really, you don't come across straight lines very often, like, and that's kind of weird. Trees are not straight lines. There's some straight-ish trees, right? Like bamboo kind of grows sort of. Well, it's actually bamboo's a grass, so I revised my statement, and no tree is straight. Maybe birch or lodgepole pine. I don't know. Where was I going with that? No straight lines. Because the world is fuzzy, and, well, not fuzzy in a good way, like warm and nice, but fuzzy because there's no sharp edges. Which again, you can say, oh, but what about, like, thorns? Well, I don't know. The thorns, see, you draw a little thorn, and it's just like, let's draw our little nub, and put a point on it, and that's another finger, obviously. Yeah. I really thought that ranting about how-to manuals was gonna get me further, but it didn't. It just got me to Lego, which you take a nub and you kind of connect it to another nub, and books I don't read, so I couldn't tell you if the text in any of those drawing books was helpful. Maybe if they'd been in like comic book format. But I don't know. I also find comics generally hard to get through, because writing overall is bad. Like, people don't write well. I'm going to make a broad generalization. All writing, some is very good and should be celebrated, but most is not very good. It's long, rambling, pointless, tedious, all those awful things. Anyways, I'm going to wrap things up. Things to remember: the nub, use it like Lego. Yeah. And you can make all faces, I guess. Just faces. Just faces.